What is up, YouTube? That's here, and today I'm super excited to be bringing you guys a brand new series on this channel, and that is where we rank Pokemon, the top 30 of every single type of Pokemon based off type. Today we're working on Dark types. So the way this is going to work, for those guys that haven't seen me do these little videos, is I'm going to open up a box, and in this box I have every single fully evolved Dark type Pokemon. You can see we got all the good stuff right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be ranking them, and I'm going to be putting them in a second box so we can see the order that we rank them in. And I would challenge you guys to leave me a comment letting me know what your top 30 list is as well. This is not the order. This is a random order. So you guys get to see what all of them are and think about it while I'm talking about it and be like, I wonder where he's going to rank Skuntank. I wonder where he's going to rank Spiritomb. Guys, I want to know if you guys want to see more videos like this. We used to do this all the time back in Let's Go and even back in Ultra Sun and Moon, and people really do seem to like these videos. And again, I want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. This is targeted towards VGC, and more specifically VGC 2021. So you can see there's no Yveltal here, for example. And because this is geared towards VGC, certain Pokemon, like Scrappy and Incineroar, they're going to be weighted a lot higher because they have access to Fake Out, which, it's actually a pretty good move in the VGC format. So, take that in mind when you're making your own list as well. I cannot wait to see some comments, and I would love it if you guys actually put some time and thought into the process. I'll probably also be leaving a little webpage down at the bottom by rankedbost that actually just has a list of all of the Pokemon that are in Sword and Shield based off Dark type, so you guys can use that as a resource as well. So without further ado, let's start this little list off. So Dark types, really good type, I think. Remember, I think the biggest selling point that Dark types have going for them in VGC, it's not really even that they're immune to Psychic. It's that they're immune to like Prankster moves. So like if you're using like, a Grimstron, for example, and you want to go for like a Prankster Thunder Wave, Dark types are going to be immune to that stuff, immune to Fake Tears from like Whimsicots, and immune to like Swaggers and things from other Prankster mons. So that's like really good. Like every team should have a Dark type in it, I think at least one. They're good at switching in on Ghost type attacks. They're nullified to Psychic. They have big weaknesses to Fairy, but a lot of these Pokemon you're going to see go really well with like using weakness policies to bait those fairies into going for attacks, or even like self-policy proccing with like quick attack Sylveons. So just because they're weak to Fairy, you can surround them with correct Pokemon to really cover up for that weakness. So to start this list off, remember this is a top 30. I think the numero uno Pokemon that's ranked 30th out of all the Dark types is... I think it's going to be Pangoro. I think Pangoro is definitely the 30th best. You can see it's a fighting Dark type, so it's 4 times weak to Fairy. Its Dark type does cover up for the fact that it is weak to Psychic, but, let's compare it to Urshifu Dark, which is a really good Pokemon. It's a new, I think Urshifu's classified as a legendary. Urshifu is strong, it's fast, it has a really good ability, and, it has moves that auto-critical hit. So when you're comparing them, there's, like, no reason to really ever use a Pangoro when you can use an Urshifu. Like, if we actually look at if we look at Pangoro in a little bit more depth, it gets some pretty good abilities. It gets Mold Breaker, it gets Scrappy, it gets Iron Fist, it can gain, like, Bullet Punch and other really cool moves. But at the end of the day, Pangoro just has a ton of weaknesses that aren't correctly able to be used by a weakness policy. It's a little bit too fast to be used in TR, it's a little bit slow to be used in a little bit of anything else. So unfortunately, even though Pangoro I would say is a little bit of a fan favorite, it really does fall short. Now, I'm not saying you can't use Pangoro, but it's just one of those Pokemon that if you're looking at using Dark types, almost all of these Pokemon do its job better. Literally, Urshifu is just a power creeped Pangoro on steroids, for example. Scrappy, and also like Pangoro doesn't get Fake Out. Like it's one of those Dark types that like if you're going to compare it to like Scrappy as well, another Pokemon, it just doesn't get Fake Out. So it really just does not bring as much to the table. And then also if you're going to compare Pangoro to other like fighting types, like Hitmontop, it doesn't have Intimidate. It doesn't have any of the good things that like all the other fighting types have as well. So Pangoro is spreading itself a little bit too thin, but I definitely think Pangoro is a cool Pokemon. It's definitely cool, but it's just not the best. Was Pangoro the ranked last on your list as well? I also want to know what everyone's like last Pokemon is. Even if you don't have time to make the whole list, I want to know what Pokemon you'd rank last. The 29th best Dark type Pokemon in Sword and Shield. It's going to be one that we actually used recently. Maybe you guys can guess it. It's going to be Spiritomb, actually. I think Spiritomb is the 29th best. Spiritomb has definitely fallen from grace in past formats. In that, like, if you look back at, like, I I think like Gen 4, Gen 5, like Spiritomb, so actually, yeah, Gen 4 and mostly just Gen 4, it didn't have any weaknesses, you know, it was before the fairy typing. And, you know, Ghost made it so it wasn't weak to those fighting attacks, and it resisted bug attacks, so it actually didn't have any weaknesses. It and Sableye were the only two Pokemon in the game that did not have weaknesses. And, you know, that's before they made it so, like, I guess I'll talk about that later. But anyways, Spiritomb used to be kind of cool. It's okay in singles, but remember, we recently used it in VGC. We used, like, this Pain Split Will-O-Wisp set with, like, Calm Mind and Dark Pulse. It kind of works, but now that fairies are, you know, in the meta, now that they're, like, prevalent, Spiritomb just has like no place in a metas that, especially metas dominated by Tapus. They outspeed it. They have super effective attacks. Spiritomb has very limited offensive options to be able to deal with it. Its only access to recovery moves, if you want to actually make it a good wall, is Pain Split. It doesn't get recover. So unfortunately, while it has really, really cool Ghost Dark typing, I just feel like even when we're comparing it to like other, you know, lower tiered Pokemon on this list, I think it's just going to fall a little bit short. But if you have a really cool Spiritomb set, you know, feel free to change my mind. Now, the next Pokemon on this list, some people might actually rate this one a lot higher, but as someone who's used it in Series 7, I can say this Pokemon is very, very, very hard to use, and it's just a unfortunate victim of the meta, and that's actually going to be Shiftry, clocking in at number 28. Now, I think Shiftry is one of the coolest, most unique Dark types. It's a Grass Dark, which means it has a million weaknesses, right? Like Flying, Fire, Ice, Fighting, Fairy, like this thing is just a weakness machine. But it gets access to Chlorophyll, which can double its speed in the sun. It also gets really, really cool moves like Fake Out and Beat Up. It gets so many good supporting moves, but let's compare it to other Chlorophyll users. Venusaur, for example, completely outclasses it. Let's compare it to other Fake Out users. Incineroar, super effective, super outclasses it. Rillaboom, super outclasses it. Has a much better ability, I would say, in Grassy Surge, being able to set the grassy terrain. Also outclasses it. A lot of the time, Rillabooms also carry bug attacks, which again are 4 times super effective against this thing. So while I do think Shiftry is like super, super cool, and it has the ability to style on people, I just feel that like because the meta is so dominated by Incineroars, Whimsicots, and other fairies, and even like Landorus's, for example, have like U-turns and things, it's really, really hard to use Shiftry, and that's a shame because this Pokemon is actually, it's one of my favorites and it's really cool. And you know what? I'm challenging people to use some Shiftry. Show me what Shiftry has, and I'll definitely become a believer once again. All right, so the 27th, right? What are we on? We're 30, 29, 28. We're on 27. Hopefully you guys have had the exact same list so far. Let me know. Is actually going to be a Pokemon that I think a lot of you guys are going to rank really, really high. But remember, this is VGC. It's different. It's not singles. Pokemon that are good in singles sometimes don't perform as well in VGC, and that's going to be Crawdont. You may be thinking, Crawdont's the best Pokemon. And you know what? If you're saying Crawdont's the best Pokemon, you're crazy for putting it at 27. I will call you a Crawdont. How would I even explain it? There's like a faction of people. Like for those of you guys who've been playing Pokemon a while, you know there's like a faction of people that just have sworn allegiance to Crawdont. Have you ever seen those people that just like have an unbelievable amount of unshaking resolve in this Pokemon? I've seen it. Those people, they exist. There's some Crawdont believers out there. It's because it gets adaptability, right? And they're like, it gets adaptability. It's one of the best abilities in the game, guys. For those who don't know what adaptability is, adaptability powers up the moves of the same type. So you basically get an additional stab on both water and dark types. Being a water type is actually really, really cool. But basically what people like to do is they're like, it gets Dragon Dance. It's so good. And then like you can go for Aqua Jets and all these cool things. But it's like, I could use the Crawdont. Or I could use like a real dragon, you know, and use Dragon Dance. Or like, yeah, I could use Crawdont. Or I could use like a Urshifu. Or I could use like Crawdont as a water type. Or I could use like a Gyarados. At the end of the day, Crawdont just really doesn't pack as much. And it's super susceptible to Intimidate. Like if you Intimidate it, you're pretty much turning off that really cool ability. Crawdont's not very fast. It's very similar to Pangoro where it doesn't really have the speed to be used in the fast teams. And it's not slow enough to really work in TR. I will say Crawdont's super cool. But I will say that everyone that thinks Crawdont's like busted is like, they got their nostalgia goggles on a little bit too hard. As far as the VGC format's concerned, this guy definitely makes for a great sweeper in singles in the lower tiers. But I think in VGC, it's just, I'm not a believer. I've never once been scared of this Pokemon. Every time I've seen someone use it, I've been like, they're bad. And I'm probably going to win. But going on to number 26 is a fan favorite. one of my personal favorite dark types. I actually think, correct me if I'm wrong, for people to like follow up on this stuff, but I actually might have the best results with this Pokemon in terms of like CP gained. I've probably gained about 50 or 60, maybe even more CP with this Pokemon. What do you think it is? It's Absol. Actually, I think Absol's really, really cool. I think Absol's really, really fun to use. Absol, definitely a victim of, you know, multiple things in Sword and Shield. First of all, it loses its Mega Evolution. You can see this moveset actually that I have was made for a special Absol because I really liked special Mega Absol because it gets access to such really, really good special attacks. It actually gets access to like Flamethrower and a bunch of other really cool stuff as well. So I actually thought that special Mega Absol was really good back in the day. And like I said, I went to a lot of events with it. I've top cut a lot of events with it. I've won, I think I won one Premier Challenge with it back in like 2014. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Absol's really, really good. Has one of the highest attacks in the game. I think it's like 130 or base 135. Normally, I like to see him on the justified sets, but super luck sets are both really good as well. This thing can be physical, can be special. Unfortunately, it really falls short when comparing it to other justified users. You know, comparing it to like Arcanines, Terrakions, Cobalions, Farizians, things like that. Those legendary Pokemon just outclass it a little bit to make it so like Absol really does struggle when compared with other justified users just because it falls so much shorter than them in the speed department. And then when we're comparing it to like other dark types, like again, there's much more of a reason to use like an Urshifu or even like a Bisharp, or maybe if you want like Fake Out from Incineroar, it gets a really good move pool, but it's very much a glass cannon. I think the biggest thing Absol does have going for it is that it gets that big stab Sucker Punch. A lot of people like Swords Dance Sucker Punch sets on this guy. You can go Life Orb sets, you can go Sash sets. I think Absol is definitely a Pokemon that is usable, but like it's one of those Pokemon that requires a ton of babysitting. You're gonna need like a really cool beat up team, ton of redirection, multiple fake outs just to make this Pokemon work, where in reality you could just use like a Terrakion or an Arcanine and probably get a better result. But Absol is definitely like a cool Pokemon. I think Absol just brings so much swag to teams. And again, unfortunately, Absol lost its Mega Evolution. I think if you were to talk about Mega Evolutions being like a factor here, Mega Absol having access to like, it gets a ton like of boost to like a special attack stat. Actually, Absol, when it was Mega, has the exact same speed and special attack stat as Latios. So you can actually compare, you know, a special attacking Mega Absol to like a Latios. And that was actually like a really cool thing you could do with Mega Evolution with Absol. But unfortunately, Absol's best days are behind it, I think. I think their best days are behind it. Now, what's the next Pokemon? We're starting to thin out a little bit. Now, what do you guys think's next? You know, I wonder, when you guys are making your list, do you actually make it from the bottom up, or do you go from the top down? Is it obvious to you which Pokemon's number one? I want to know all these things in the comments. Again, we're still trying to get tons of comments on the videos. We're trying to get every single video to 100 likes. If you've stayed this far, leave a comment saying, I have stayed this far. I need to know from my analytics, guys. I need to know. Even if you've already left a comment, I want another one. Let's see. The Pokemon that is number, what is it? We got 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25. 25 is going to be our boy, Sharpedo. I think Sharpedo is actually a good Pokemon. Similar to Crocodile, it is a water dark type, so it's a weakness machine. Sharpedo is one of the few Pokemon in the game, actually, that still has Speed Boost. They actually took away, you know, Yon Mega's not in the game, so it doesn't have Speed Boost, but, like, they added Blaziken. But other than that, I think these are the only two, plus Ninjask, that actually still have Speed Boost. And I think, actually, Sharpedo can bring a decent amount to the table. Similar to Absol, it's one of those Pokemon that losing its Mega Evolution really did hurt it. You know, Mega Sharpedo was actually a really good threat, like, back in the day. You go, like, for one turn, get your Speed Boost, and then you'd Mega Evolve after that, and, you know, you'd have the... What is that? Strong Jaw? I think I got Strong Jaw. And it was just able to hit really hard. But yeah, Sharpedo usually likes to be played with Sash. I really like these Bulldoze sets that can help me enable like weakness policy mons. You've seen me use like Sharpedo Duraludon before. You know, I Bulldoze, proc my policy, and then I'm able to enable my Duraludon to hit things one shot. And then, you know, on this set, you know, you could also talk about even using, what is that? Destiny Bond. I really liked Destiny Bond on this Pokemon. And it's unfortunate with the nerf to Destiny Bond and Sword and Shield that you can't like Destiny Bond Dynamax Pokemon. But Sharpedo having access to Speed Boost and Destiny Bond, those two go very, very well with each other because Sharpedo is able to outspeed a bunch of stuff, layer up that Destiny Bond. I also think Sharpedo's another reason why it's not ranked as high in this gen is because Z moves are gone, and Z Destiny Bond was such a really, really good move, being able to redirect things and go for that big Destiny Bond as well. So unfortunately, Sharpedo, I think, fallen a little bit short. But I think Sharpedo's still definitely better, like, than Crocodile, I think. Because Crocodile hits, like, hard, but people don't let the Crocodile hit hard because it's too slow. Similar to Absol, like at least Sharpedo has the speed to make itself work, but the only holes in Sharpedo's, you know, I guess it's the only holes in its sets, like keeping it behind, is that like it's super weak to Intimidate. It's super easy to wall. It's a bit of a glass cannon. It needs to be sashed. And Sharpedo is, I would say, very one-dimensional. You know, I know we just mentioned, like, yeah, I can go for Bulldoze and, like, Destiny Bonds. But for the most part, this Pokemon can only really do a couple things. It can't switch in at all. It provides zero ability to switch in on any moves. Otherwise, it just gets one-shotted. More often than not, like, people know that you're going to want to fish for multiple speed boosts with Protects, and you can definitely outplay a ton of Sharpedo players. And, you know, one wrong turn, you lose Sharpedo, you're already down him on. Sharpedo's the type of one that loses you a game in that situation. So that's why it's still ranked super low, in my opinion. But we've done one row. We've done one row. What is going to be Pokemon number 24? What do you guys think it is? This is going to surprise you, because there's probably some Pokemon you're looking at like, why is this Pokemon not ranked 30? But it's actually really good. Skuntank is going to be ranked 24. I think Skuntank actually is a lot better than people give it credit for. It is a Poison Dark. And one good thing about being Poison Dark is a couple of things Poisons are weak against. Like, you know, Psychic, for example. Dark already mitigates. And one of the things Dark's weak against in fighting, Poison mitigates. So it's one of the few Dark types in the game that doesn't really have as many Dark weaknesses or Poison weaknesses as you might think. It's really its biggest, and it also is neutral to Fairy as well. You know, Fairy would be super effective against Dark. It's not very effective against Poison, so it's neutral there. But it is very susceptible to ground type attacks, so you can definitely help mitigate that a little bit. Another cool thing Skuntank really has going for it is that it gets access to like fire attacks. You know, we're not using that one here, but special attacker Skuntank, it gets Flamethrower. It's one of the few like Poison Darks, or Poison and or Darks, that can actually really deal with like Ferrothorns and things like that. Celesteelas, for example, like Flamethrower does a lot. You see this set here was one they actually featured in a singles video, which I think it's much better. And it went for like, it was a vested set that had like Dig for max Quake, Iron Tail being go for max Steel Spike, Explosion was funny, able to also just apply max Strike or Speed Control, and then actually having that Stab Sucker Punch. Like, Sucker Punch is such a good move. Not all the Dark types get Sucker Punch, and being able to stab those Sucker Punches is really, really good at checking like Ghost types, especially like Dragapult. There's a lot of Acephalons running around right now. Being able to stop those Pults before they can enable their Colossals with Surf and things like that, that's really, really important. And Skuntank actually has just enough attack to be able to pull that off. If you want to like heavily invest in attack, it still has enough to be able to OHKO Dragapult before they can enable their teammates. And I just think that it's typing that sets it above these Pokemon. Like, you know, a lot of these Pokemon actually said, you know, one of the biggest detriments was their typing. You know, Pangoro, its typing's holding it back. Shiftry, its typing's holding it back. You know, with the other ones, it's their, you know, speed or their other stats holding them back. But with Skuntank, its biggest selling point is definitely its typing, and that it can just stick on boards for a really, really long time and just, you know, be pretty decent. The next Pokemon on this list, probably some people might not think that it should be on this list. Some people might even think it should be higher. But the 23rd best Dark type in Sword and Shield is actually going to be Sneasel, I think. I think Sneasel actually brings a decent amount to the table. And you note that we also do have Weavile in this list, and I felt it was important to separate them. Because Sneasel with Eevee, Sneasel with Focus Sash, it gains something that Weavile does not. It sacrifices attack, it sacrifices speed, but you can see Sneasel has the ability Inner Focus, which means it's unaffected by Fake Out. So if you need something to help proc policies, if you want to use Surf to enable weakness policy on something like a Colossal, you can guarantee you lead Sneasel Colossal, Dynamax your Col, go for Surf. I think that reason enough. Also, there's like a bunch of other combos Sneasel can really do, but like just having that in this format is enough to make this Pokemon by far and away like better than these. Also, remember guys, Inner Focus, since the boost in Sword and Shield makes it so they don't get intimidated anymore. So if you want to go like full attack, you have access to Fake Out, you can Ice you in for Speed Control, you can Ice Shard Policy proc, you can proc policies in multiple different ways with this Pokemon. Through redirection sometimes using like Surf and things like that. Like Sneasel actually provides like, and again, you still have access to beat up. Like if I were to lead like Sneasel Terrakion and go like a full speed Sneasel, we'd still be outspeeding our Terrakion. We can go for Dynamax Terrakion, go for a beat up play, and there's like not that much that most teams can do to stop it. They'd have to use redirection, and if they want to use redirection, cool, I can just Fake Out you with my Sneasel, stop you from redirecting, and the Pokemon that I wanted to Dynamax with can just Dynamax hit the thing that it wants to hit. So Sneasel actually brings a lot of oppressive team play. It also gets access to Feint. Bunch of really, really cool moves in this Pokemon. It's definitely worth including in this list. And because it's so good at the few jobs that it does, I definitely feel, you know, it gets put a little bit higher than the Pokemon that have a lot of things holding them back. All right, what's next? What's next? I actually really like this next Pokemon. I really like it. I wish it could be higher. I feel at other times, I feel actually with this Pokemon, it always gets slept on. Every single time this Pokemon pops in the meta, people are like, why have I been using this all year? And it's a lot better than people give it credit for. It's the sleeper dark type in this whole list, I think. I think it's the biggest sleeper of all of them. And that's going to be Malamar. I think Malamar is so cool. I actually almost brought this thing to Dallas Regionals. This was the set that I was going to use at Dallas Regionals. It gets access to Trick Room, but what really sets Malamar apart from a bunch of other Pokemon actually just in the game is its ability to get Contrary. Now, Contrary, people like to use it similar to like Defiant or Competitive, in where like if you were to have like Defiant or Competitive and you were to get Intimidated or like a stat drop, it would raise your, offensive stat. And so you use that as a counter to Intimidates. Malamar's a little bit different, but it really does work in a similar way. It's makes so any stat changes have an opposite effect. So instead of relying on your opponents to like intimidate you or drop your stats so you can, raise them, you raise your own stats using moves like Superpower. Superpower lowers your attack and then and your defense, and then you get like a sharply boosted thing that thanks to the contrary. Like it says make stat change with opposite effect. It's just such a good Pokemon. And yeah, it doesn't like lower them, I guess. Like it's still really I guess I should explain contrary better, because you're not taking the attack drop. It makes it have an opposite effect, right? So like when they intimidate you, you're technically getting a +1. When you use Superpower, you're getting a +1 attack and a +1 defense. It also has access to Liquidation, which I think is really good, especially since there are so many Colossals running around right now. It's a good way to rechange the weather. It has access to Night Slash, Stab. Like, I think this Pokemon is so underrated, and it makes a great mon to just splash onto a team. This checks people running Porygon 2s. This checks other hard TR teams. It makes it, like, Malamar, for example, being a Dark Psychic type, like, it's super good against, like, Infinity Hat. And I think this Pokemon just has so much going for it, and I really wish that more people use Malamar. Like, I actually have a couple cool Malamar teams coming up relatively soon. So Malamar's definitely good. There are tons of things holding it back, though. Dark Psychic, first of all, it is 4 times weak to, like, Bug, which is not the best thing ever. And I guess there are just a bunch of other, like, little things holding it back. It's not that bulky. It doesn't have access to a bunch of redirection. It's definitely more of an offensive Pokemon, so you have to babysit a Malamar. But it is one of those Pokemon that can definitely win games by themselves. But, like, let's talk about the meta. Like, most teams have Incineroar, right? Incineroar is going to give you an attack boost. You can go for the Liquidate. You can go for the Superpowers. A lot of teams have, like, a lot of Pokemon that are weak to Superpowers. And if they want to bring in their Ghost, well, cool. You stab your Night Slash. I wish Malamar got knockoff. That'd be so good. But, like, again, Malamar does require a decent amount of babysitting to really pull off. You have to build your team around Malamar, and that's one of the reasons why it's so low, just because it's not the type of Pokemon you can splash into a team and have that immediate effect. But what's next? What is next? Up next is a Pokemon that is much better in singles. And it's very similar to a Pokemon that's already on this list, but I think this one's just a little bit better. And that is going to be Skarner. It's Drapion. Yeah, Drapion's really good. Very similar to the Skuntank. This thing gets the Poison Dark typing, so it's really good. I think historically, didn't someone in like Players Cup 1 make it really far with this Pokemon? I think this thing is just a much better attuned Pokemon than Skuntank. So let's put it over here. Let's put it where it goes. It's a lot more offensive, but it does have like a lot more going for it. It gets a bunch more different splashable moves. It's a lot more physical. I think vested versions of these guys are really good. It also gets Acupressure, which I think is really good. I think it's just overall, this is where, like, I guess starting from like right here, the rest of the Pokemon on this list have like major really good things going for them. But in terms of using Drapion, it gets Sniper. Sniper's really good at that. Get that big damage off crits. And I generally think it's just a really cool Pokemon. I've seen people pair this Pokemon. For those guys who don't know what Sniper is, let's check it out. So Sniper says powers up moves if they become critical hits when attacking. So, you use like Night Slash, high crit ratio. You can pair it with like, I've seen people pair this thing with Gmax with Champ, give it high crit ratio moves, and just do like auto crits, and you just do that massive damage with the big critical hits. I don't remember if this guy gets Sucker Punch, but if it doesn't, that's sad. I thought it might. I think you have to use Night Slash. But also, being a Dark type with like above average like overall stats, like this thing is really thick actually, especially on the defensive side. It's one of the few Pokemon that can just eat, like its big weakness was ground. It can just eat earthquakes, proc policies. But yeah, it's a dark type that like when your opponents have fairies, you're like, cool, I'm gonna check you because you don't deal super effective damage to me because I'm a poison type and I deal super effective damage back to you. So it's one of the few dark types in the games that like you want to bring this to fight their Pokemon that they've brought to beat you. It baits them into the false security of like relying on, you know, their good fairy typing and then you just punish them for it. So it's a really good anti-meta Pokemon and it can kind of be splashed in a lot of teams. I think Drapion's actually really good. So let's see, we have 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20. We're into number 20. And this is going to be, I guess there's also a lot of people that really like this Pokemon. This Pokemon has a lot going for it. It has a bunch of different really good abilities. And it's been popular over previous formats. And it's going to be Crocodile. It gets access to Anger Point, which you can see the one that I'm using here. It gets access to Anger Point, Intimidate, and Moxie. All three really, really good abilities that have similar play styles. You know, I would say historically actually more popular than not been the Intimidate set. But that's just because it's an above average speed mon and it checks a lot of the other mons that also get Intimidate. So like if you were to lead with, you know, like Incineroar when I lead Crocodile, I'm technically ahead. I really do outspeed you. I have a super effective move. And yeah, we trade Intimidates, but you're behind. Same thing goes if they want to lead with like, let's see. Also, it's one of the since it's also dark typing, it's really good against ghosts, really good at stopping those TRs. It gets access to taunt too. It's one of the few high speed intimidating mons that gets access to taunt. People really just play this thing kind of like Landorus, you know, because Landorus, I don't think Landorus gets taunt, and that's one of the reasons why you use Crocodile instead. You know, it used to get knockoff back in the day, so you'd go like knockoff, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Taunt, or Protect, or something like that. Anger Point's also a really popular set as well, pairing that with like an extreme speed scope blend super like Togekiss to proc your Anger Point, which will max your attack stat, and then you can just one-shot everything. It gets a good amount of AoE moves. It gets access to, you know, Earthquakes, Rock Slides. It also gets, what is that move? Power Trip. It's one of the best Power Trip users. This was one of the Pokemon that actually, when Eevee was a really big team back in like Ultra Sun and Moon, they would more often than not baton pass their extreme Eevee boost to a Crocodile and go for Power Trip, which was stabbed and did more damage depending on more boost that you had. Can't really do that as much with this gun, with this gen, but I still think it's actually like a really, really good Pokemon. And I probably rate this Pokemon a lot lower than some other people. I could definitely see a lot more people having Crocodile in their top 10. But I do know that it has a lot of weaknesses, and when I do see a Crocodile, I'm like, cool, I can outspeed that Pokemon. You know, it doesn't have recovery moves. More often than not, they don't really carry Protect, and most people just want to use it for Intimidate. And if you Intimidate it back, it's one of those Pokemon that can be, you know, kind of ignored for a latter half of the game. You know, similar to Landorus, it still has that big Ice and Water weakness. But I think having a weakness to like Fairy and Bug instead of having that like, you know, big flying typing is what sets Landorus apart from this guy. Also, like, Landorus is immune to ground attacks, and this guy's not. So it plays a similar role to Landorus, but I feel it's definitely overshadowed by Landorus. And just because of that, it tends to get used less, which means it's had a lesser impact on the meta. Its own meta is a little bit less developed, and so that's why it's a little bit lower. Speaking of Pokemon that should have had a bigger impact on the meta, that have not, is our next Pokemon. I think this Pokemon, I actually don't have a video featuring this thing, and that's not because I don't think it's good. I do think it's good. I fought against a bunch of really good players that have used this Pokemon, but I've just personally never used it, and it's better than, you know, it's better than I give it credit for. Every single time I see it, it overperforms, and that's going to be Obstagoon. Now, you can see the Obstagoon I have here is just one that I caught in game, because, again, I don't have one, but it gets access to Defiant, which can raise its stats. We talked about Contrary earlier. Remember, Defiant says when your stats get lowered, you get a sharply boost to your attack stats. So if they intimidate you, you end up getting a +1 out of it. Or if you switch in and they hit your teammate with like a max move that would lower their stats, you get a +2 off of that. Actually, am I thinking about that correctly? I don't remember. Anyways, you know what I mean. Defiant's a really, really good ability, and this guy gets it, but it also gets Guts. So Guts can be paired with like a Flame Orb to burn yourself, or maybe switching on some sort of, you know, status move, and it infects you, and then it gives you a +1 boost. Now, I do think the Defiant's better because, you know, a lot of the Pokemon that want to burn you also use Intimidate, and so it's like, yes, like you're getting burned by an Arcanine, but like an Arcanine also intimidates you, so the boost that you're getting from your burn makes it so you don't really, you break even. What you do get, though, is ability to use Facade, which is Stab, because this guy is a normal dark type, and I think that's its biggest selling point. Normal types are very, very, very good in VGC, and that's the reason why they're really good is because ghost attacks are really good. And if you have a normal type in your team, even if it's not on the board, Pokemon like Dragapult, they're not going to max their Pult probably, and they're not just going to throw out max Phantasms because they can't hit the normal type. And if they waste their max turns on hitting Pokemon, like if you go for a max Phantasm and I switch in my Obstagoon, I block you, and then I have a super effective Dark typing to deal with you after, and you don't want to go for Worm Winds because I could potentially be Defiant, like, you're boned. That's the game. Like, I don't know why more people didn't use Obstagoon because Dragapult was everywhere. Yeah, it has that big 4 times weakness to fighting, similar to like Pangoro and stuff, but this guy has a much higher base speed. It's a 3rd evolution, so I actually think it has a lot going for it. Tons of speed, tons of attack, can use so many different moves, and I feel like this Pokemon just never really got given a chance to be good. Like, right from the start, people were already using all the other new Pokemon, and people just didn't really use Obstagoon. Like, I've never seen a vested set. And I think that's a shame, because I think this Pokemon brings a lot to the table. And the only reason I'm rating it low is just because its meta is pretty underdeveloped. So maybe we got to start using some Obstagoon. But we've used a lot of Pokemon so far. We've used a lot of Pokemon so far. We're almost halfway through. And the next Pokemon we're busting out is a Pokemon that I really do like, but it has a ton of problems. And that is going to be Guzzlord. I feel it'd be a shame to put Guzzlord, like, any lower than this. But also, it'd be a shame to put Guzzlord any higher than this as well, because the rest of the Pokemon on this list are all, like, kind of staples of certain metas. And Guzzlord, while being really cool, it has that big 4 times weakness to Fairy, which is a little bit of a death. It has weaknesses to Bug, has weaknesses to Fighting, has weaknesses to Ice. Like, this thing has a ton of weaknesses. A lot of people are actually using weakness policy Guzzlords. I've seen those very recently. It's in Ultra Beast. It does get Beast Boost. And I've used this set before in, restricted formats. It's really, really good at checking, a lot of restricted mons. And, back in the day, we used to see a lot more like Hyper Voice Sylveons. We used to see a lot more Dazzling Gleams. And so you could bait those with Wide Guard. It's one of the few Pokemon. Actually, I think it's the only Pokemon on this list that gets Wide Guard, which, that's busted. Wide Guard's really good. And for those guys who don't think Wide Guard's good, just wait. It'll be good. It gets Snarl. Stab Snarl is really nice. Access to Dragon attacks as well. I think Guzzlord's a cool Pokemon. I think Guzzlord's definitely cooler than, people give it credit for. I think its coolness factor is the only reason it never really even gets used. And then it kind of just dies. And then, yeah. Because it's one of those Pokemon that, like, even if you get a Beast Boost with it, you don't really get a boost to that many offensive stats. Like, right now with this Guzzlord set, I'll show you my Eevee spread. This is an older set from 2019. We're using... That's how you EV train this guy. Its HP stat is massive. And so you don't put any points in it. You just put points in, like, special defense and defense. I think this thing had, like, a Wiki Berry or something. And, yeah, you would just try and pick up KOs on Ferrothorns or Celesteals with Fire Blast. You'd Snarl everything else. You'd Wide Guard whenever there was AoE. And once we do see those restricted formats, we're going to start seeing, like, Kyogres, Groudons using Precipice Blades. The Astral Barrages or whatever from those other Pokemon. Wide Guard's going to be a lot better, and then Draco Meteor to check the random dragons that are just on those restricted teams. So in that format, it's okay. We're not really there with, the current VGC 2021 rules that we had, but I feel it'd be a shame to put Guzzlord any lower. All right, and the next Pokemon on the list. It's a Pokemon that I said before the game even came out was going to be busted. On the right team. You have to build a team kind of around it, but definitely a Pokemon that is a mascot of another very popular PokeTuber as well, and that's going to be Thievul. I think Thievul is actually really, really good. Anytime you ever see Pokemon with Unburden, for those of you guys who don't know, say when you use your item, it doubles your speed stat, right? Boosts the speed stat if the Pokemon's held item is used or lost, if you, like, knocked off. Also, I want to say, like, a lot of people are like, you could use Thievul with, like, Psychic Seeds and then Thief. If you regain the item, you lose the boost. So, like, it's not necessarily as good. Like, I've done it. It's still good. It's still funny, but you do lose the boost to your speed. But yeah, I think Thievul has so much going for it. Moxie Boosted being the YouTuber that actually uses a ton of Thievul. I think it pairs very well with Lele, very well with Rillaboom. It gets access to Howls, Fake Tears. It's very, very, very good. A lot of the times when people think of, like, Unburdened mons, they think of, like, Drifblim. And this thing has none of the problems that Drifblim have. Like, people are ready for Drifblim. They have those ice attacks, those electric attacks, those ghost attacks, those dark attacks. Thievul, all you really got to worry about is, like, fairy attacks, which more often than are special, and you're getting a special defense boost, you pair it with a Lele. Or, like, fighting, you get a physical boost, you pair it with a Rillaboom, get that Grassy Seeds. And I just think Thievul has the perfect speed stat. I actually think, I think it might be, like, I don't know if I remember it's 80 or whatever Thievul's actual speed stat is. It's perfect to pull off, like, this Eevee spread. which is just HP and speed straight up. It's like actually just the perfect Eevee spread to still like outspeed literally everything off the double speed boost. I don't remember exactly what it is, but maybe someone can remind me in the comments what its actual base is. But it's the perfect number for what you actually need to outspeed everything. I want to say it's 90 actually, but it's so good. It's such a good Pokemon, and it will be put right here. All right, up next. Up next is a Pokemon that I have not used in like a year, but I've seen it a little bit on YouTube recently, and that's going to be more Pekko. And so we're actually starting to get into like the dark types that have like Fake Out. And so I think that more Pekko is really, really cool. It gets a really unique ability, which a lot of Pokemon don't really have, and that is Hunger Switch. So the Pokemon changes its form, alternating between full belly mode and hangry mode at the end of every turn. And so basically what that does, it's not like Aegislash where it actually changes its typing. It only makes it so the typing on Aura Wheel, this move right here that gives you a speed boost every single time you use it, it changes the type between electric and dark. And while I do think that's cool because it's a move that can be both electric or dark, you're also kind of stuck sometimes where like I don't have my dark attack or I don't have my electric attack, which can be really annoying. Pekko gets, I think, like 96 or 97 base speed, so it's a good enough speed stat. Gives access to Fake Out, access to Parting Shot. It's a good Pokemon. It's a great like sash user. It's very similar to like a Togamaru, but it just has a ton more like offensive pressure. Instead of like Togamaru that had like spiky shields and a little bit of like lightning rod redirection type things, this thing gets the Aura Wheel. This thing gets Parting Shot. I think also like Stab Snarl, you put like Stab Foul Play. All the Pokemon on this list, you Stab Foul Play, like that's busted. That's so good. Can one-shot like any physical sweeper. But yeah, I think Pekko is really good. And I wish I saw it more, but when you think of like those Fake Out electric rodents, you really only use those Pokemon for the lightning rod redirection. Like Pikachu's, Raichu's, Togemarus. This one doesn't have that. It's a little bit more aggressive, but I do think that there's definitely spots in the meta for this thing to exist. The Aura Wheel, like I said, it's like a 110 base move. Gives you a speed boost. It can one-shot those Pulse, but it's definitely able to be played around because, for example, for a Dragon Ball, for example, if they know you're going to Aura Wheel them, they just protect or Phantom Force that turn, and then next turn you're hitting with an electric type, which is not very effective against dragons. So it's kind of hard to play with, but a good Pekko player can definitely make things work. Going into the next Pokemon on the list, Pokemon from a different region, maybe. It's going to be a Woolwind Persian. I think a Woolwind Persian is great. It's probably one of the better beat-up users in the game. It does get beat up. It does get Fake Out. And what a Woolwind Persian really has going for it is that it has a 115 base speed. So like your Fake Out you'll always be able to Fake Out their Fake Out user. And for teams that are really reliant on going like Fake Out Trick Room or Fake Out Tailwind or stuff like that, being able to always know that your Fake Out's going to go first, that is so nice. Because like if I lead Persian Porygon and I want to get a Trick Room up, for example, and just throw that out there, and they lead Incineroar and X Pokemon that can have problems for me, I can always Fake Out their Incineroar and just go for my Trick Room. And Porygon's, for example, be a Pokemon that they're probably not going to be able to one-shot with their other Pokemon. And so I'm just in a really, really good spot. Also, it's access like Icy Wind. It has the Fur Coat ability, which, is actually a really, really good ability. Similar to like a lot of these Fake Out mons, for example, like these Sash mons, like more Pekko. You're going to see a couple other things on this list. They get like the Fake Out and are really fast, hit hard, like Sneasel and Weavile. They're glass cannons. They rely on like a Focus Sash to keep them bulky. But Fur Coat says it halves the damage from physical moves. And I almost want to say, I think that it also makes it so you take double damage from fire attacks. I don't know why it doesn't say that here, but I think that's part of it as well. But yeah, Fur Coat, super, super good. Maybe that's like double his ability. Maybe those are different. But yeah, halving the damage from all physical attacks means you don't actually have to go like Sash on Persian. Like you can just actually put like a Citrus Berry or like a Pinch Berry. It gets access to Parting Shot, like a fast Parting Shot. People like to use this instead of an Incineroar when they don't want that ground or rock weakness. And it becomes a really, really good Pokemon in very specific teams. This thing also gets Snarl and Foul Play. It's a fast stabbed Foul Play. So like for people using Metagross, just one-shot their Metagross. It's like they got no check for that. I wish that Persian, like looking back, I probably should have put Persian a little bit higher. But I will say one problem with Persian is like sometimes you get caught in situations, especially in ones like dominated by like Tapus, like Lele shuts this thing off, Feeny shuts this thing off, Coco shuts this thing off. All of those things kind of shut Persian off. And they kind of just ignore your Persian, and there's not that much Persian can really do. Like Incineroar can start Flare Blitzing things and start causing a muck. Persian doesn't have as much. It's really tied to being only using dark attacks. It does get access to like Nasty Plot, Thunderbolts, and things like that, but you really don't see that often. So that's why it's still a little bit middle of the pack. We're at the halfway point. Oh my gosh, my voice is gonna die. Let me know if you guys have made it to the halfway point. And let's see, the next Pokemon on the list, more Fake Out users. This Pokemon I entered in I built my first regional team around Scrappy, and I think Scrappy is still really good. A lot of people are like, Scrappy sucks. That's 4 times weakness to Fairy. It's terrible. I've always thought that Scrappy was absolutely busted, because if I have a 4 times weakness to Fairy, but I have access to like Fake Out and other cool things like that, I can totally bait your fairies into attacking. I can hard switch, protect, do whatever I want, and then once your fairy's gone, I'm only really weak against like flying. You know, I'm gonna be okay because my fighting type is my weakness to psychics mitigated by the fact that I'm a dark type. I get access to Fake Out. I can work in Trick Room. I can work outside of Trick Room, and I get Fake Out Intimidate. That's the reason you use Scrappy, is Fake Out Intimidate. This Pokemon is so good, and the more people start to use Incineroar, the better Scrappy's going to get, because Scrappy is the check to Incineroar. They can totally have their Fake Out, they can have their parting shots, Flurry Blitzes, it does not matter. Like, Scrappy can be Eevee trained to outspeed most common Incineroar sets, and then we get access to like Drain Punch, we get a little more sustain, and when it comes down to that Scrappy versus Incineroar at the end of the game, well, Scrappy's going to be the Pokemon to, you know, edge out that victory. So Scrappy's like an edgy anti-meta Incineroar. It also gets access to like Shed Skin, which is not a terrible ability. Being able to make it so you don't have to be affected by, like, you can use Rest on Scrappy, go for like full heals with that thing. You can also get Moxie and just not even care. And just start one-shotting things, gets Dragon Dance. I think Scrappy has a lot going for it. And I also personally like that Scrappy gets like the punch move, so you can go like Ice Punch. It gets Head Smash. I don't know if it still gets Dragon Tail, but like Scrappy's busted. And I've always thought that it's really good. Scrappy's definitely the type of Pokemon that like definitely appears to World Championships a lot. And I've always thought it was really good. All right, up next, more Fake Out users. Who would have figured? Fake Out, pretty good on these dark types. It's gonna be Weville. Weville is next. And you may be thinking, like, Weavile's so far separated from Sneasel. I think you're overrating Weville. Weville really has a lot going for it in that it has, like, a really, really fast speed tiering. So we're talking about the tierings of Fake Out. I think Weville might be the fastest in the game. So if I have a Weville and you have literally any other Fake Out user, cool. I can Fake Out you, and I'm in control. Weville says that I'm in control. Very similar to Sneasel, it can also Policy Proc with Ice Shard, Policy Proc with Surfs. It's faster than a lot of those things, so like, it also still gets beat up too. So like, I can go for a much faster plays with Weville than I would be able to with Sneasel. Yes, I'm susceptible to Fake Out, but Weavile's so much stronger that like, at the end of the day, similar to like, you know, Persian, people can kind of ignore a Sneasel. You can't ignore a Weville. Weville got a huge boost with Triple Axle being a move. You know, this Weville set's a little bit old, it doesn't have it. But Weville also gets like Pressure, gets Pickpocket, pretty cool ability as well. Ice types means it's really good at checking dragons. It outspeeds said dragons and actually has the damage to take them out. Weavile's been a popular Pokemon for a really, really long time. I feel like it just gets a little bit worse with every single gen. But like, even going as far back as like Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, Weaviles were still like winning and top cutting like regionals. Weavile's just one of those Pokemon that says, I control the board, you're forced to respect me, and it doesn't even have to come into the game. It just has to be in the team preview for you to have that like hyper offensive, like, you know, aspect to your teams. And I think that's like really, really important. So up next, a Pokemon that's much better in singles, but if you look back at the history of VGC as a whole, this Pokemon still performs very well and performs actually better than people give it credit for. I talked about Malamar being like the sleeper pick that's really, really good. I think there's one other Pokemon that's like sleeper OP that a lot of people are definitely not looking at right now, and that's going to be Mandibus. Mandibus is very, very good right now, and a lot of people aren't using it. It gets access to Overcoat, being able to, you know, go super well in Sandstorm teams. Like if you compare it to like Tyranitar, right? Obviously they both have the fairy weakness, but like Ttar being weak to like ground attacks, Mandibus doesn't care. Ttar set in the Sandstorm, Mandibus Overcoat doesn't really care. I've always thought that Overcoat should block Leech Seed, but it doesn't. I think that's dumb. But Mandibus also gets weak armor, so like you can pair it with people that you know, self-policy proc, give it a speed boost because weak armor gives them a sharp speed boost, and then policy procs, like they self-ice shard, and then their Mandibus just becomes like a beast, just slamming like airstreams and Mac Darknesses, just one-shot and everything. But historically, the standard Mandibus set is not this one. The historic Mandibus set is probably like Roost, Foul Play, Snarl, and some people like Whirlwind, some people like Taunt. It has an above average speed, so we can still use that. Tailwind also is very, very good on Mandibus. That's what probably would go in that last spot. Protect works really well. It works similar to a Rillaboom, not Rillaboom, Driftblim. And more often than not, people like to pair this thing with Tapu Finis, give it that Misty Seeds, give it that bulk, and you know, you just kind of become an unKOable object with Mandibus. And you know, unlike Persian and unlike a couple other Pokemon, you know, like Spiritomb, this thing gets that Roost, so it actually has the recovery. And because you're using Snarls to lower their special attack. You have Foul Play to deal with physical attackers. Like, Mandibus can play the long game, and Mandibus, similar playstyle to like a Celesteela, can definitely like 1v4. As long as it doesn't get one-shotted from a max move, Mandibus is going to be able to carry you into the late game, and I think Mandibus has a lot more going for it than a lot of people give it credit for. You know, like, let's talk about, like, a lot of people are using like Galarian Moltres, which is on this list as well. I actually think, like, Mandibus is like a really, really decent Pokemon when like kind of comparing it to Galarian Moltres, and that like it's not affected by a lot of the things that like Moltres has problems with, because Moltres are really built to be a lot more aggressive, and Mandibus says, cool, you have that aggression, I'm just gonna not die, and your aggression, because it's usually based around Dynamax or like Trick Room or Tailwind, it has like a timing attack attached to it, and if I wait that out, like Mandibus is one of those Pokemon that just commands a lot more board dominance in the later game. So it's definitely going to be on this list. So up next, let's see. It's going to be another Fake Out user. We're running out of Fake Out users, guys. We only have 4 or 5 left. I think actually Vipert is going to be the next one. Vipert's going to be next. So Vipert, I think that I wish I could put it higher. It gets access to Prankster. It's a dark type with Prankster, so it means all of its status moves get that +1 priority. And it makes it so you can go for a bunch of really cool things. You can go for tricks, tricking eject buttons. You can go for fake tears. You can see that I have Copycat on here. And so the common combo with Vipert is to pair it with like a Trick Room user. And if you use Trick Room in max mode, so if I leave with like a Hatterene and Vipert, and I were to go like Dynamax Max Guard, but make that Max Guard boosted off the move Trick Room, I'd be able to use a priority Trick Room on turn 1 to guarantee get it up. And then I already have my Maximum ready to go. And so just having access to that while also having access to like the abilities with the, you know, trick, the Prankster trick, eject button plays, access to like so many other things. I think it just makes Vipert a very, very balanced like glass cannon that has a very one-dimensional play style, but something that forces respect of the opponent. And I just think Vipert's just pretty good. It's very similar to Persian, but like imagine if Persian could do that. Like that'd be pretty busted. I mean, I guess I think Persian probably still warrants Copycat, but it's not Prankster. That's the thing. Vipert's Prankster, gets access to like Thunder Waves, Swaggers, so many other like really, really good moves on this thing. And I wish I could put it higher, but like you're starting to see we only have really, really good Pokemon left. We only have really, really good Pokemon left. I actually think rating it on the top 10. When 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're going into the top 10. And there's probably one Pokemon that's like sticking out here that you're like, why is that Pokemon still here? And I'll tell you why. It's because Umbreon is so good. This Pokemon got second at the World Championships, I think, didn't it? Was that World Championships or was that like a Players' Cup or something? This Pokemon's like actually still really, really good, especially in a Dynamax format because it gets access to Yawn. First of all, I know this one that I'm using is not Inner Focus, but Inner Focus means it's immune to Fake Out as well. So being immune to Fake Out's very, very nice. But yeah, Protect, Yawn, Wish, Foul Play, Snarls. This Pokemon has exactly what it needs. It also gets like Moonlights if you don't want to go with that Wish strat. Remember, Moonlight restores more health in the sun, restores 66% in the sun, a little bit less in the rain and hail and sand, but you know, it's still really, really good. This Pokemon's kind of like an immovable object, and in singles, I like, this is actually my single set, but you can see if you go for a Yawn on their Dynamax Mon, they've pretty much wasted their Dynamax. Next, you use Double Protect. They've wasted all their Dynamax turns. You haven't used your Dynamax turns. And then you win. That's pretty much the game. Umbreon is a Pokemon that says, hey, you can't one-shot me and you lose for trying to be aggressive, so don't be aggressive. And if they don't want to be aggressive, they will eventually just get KO'd by, like, the fact that you're lowering their special attack return with Snarls or using big stabbed foul plays. Umbreon just brings a lot to the table, and it's really hard to get a good Umbreon off the board. Yeah, it still has those weaknesses to, like, Bug Fighting and Fairy, but Umbreon, unlike a lot of these other Pokemon, has the bulk to just kind of laugh at those things. It's like, oh, you're Moonblasting me? Cool, that's going to do like 60%. By the way, you're yawned. Have fun switching. On your switch, I'm going to heal. Or I'm going to protect. Or I'm going to switch to my teammate, you know? And then just, or maybe you just proc a Citrus Berry and I'm still not even within KO range. Umbreon's actually really, really good. And I would say that it's fairly rated. Like every time you see an Umbreon, people are like, that's annoying. I don't like fighting that. And that's a good example of a Pokemon that like, every time you see that in the team preview, you're like, it's better than people give it credit for. All right, number 9. A Pokemon that I really like. You've seen me use it a ton. We already have one Pokemon of this type on the list, and that is going to be Sableye. I think Sableye brings a lot to the table. I wish I could put Sableye higher. I really do. I think the fact that Again, it's that Prankster monster. It's priority boosting to all of its support moves, and this guy gets Quash, which means you have guaranteed speed control. They set Tailwind, Quash makes it so it delays their move until they go last. If they get Trick 'em Up, cool, you're still going to go last. It will still delay it. So, like, I love pairing Sableye with Charizard. I think Sableye is actually one of the best, like, anti-meta weather Pokemon. I can pair Sableye, it gets Rain Dance, it gets Sunny Day, all those things. I can go Sableye Zard. I can go, cool, I have access to Fake Out if I want it. I have access to Trick, Eject Button if I want it. I have access to Quash if I want it. And it just provides so many good things. It also gets, like, Ally Switch. Sableye, you also lost a Mega Evolution. I think that was kind of lame. I'm one of the few people that got, like, a lot of CP with that as well. I just think Sableye brings so much to the table. Great Sashmon, still stabs a foul play. Unfortunately, the big reason why Sableye is not, like, the numero uno best is because it's the Prankster user and Psychic Terrain is so prevalent right now. If they have, like, an Entity in their team, you like, can't bring this Pokemon. It just kind of falls apart, doesn't really work the right way unless you have a dedicated way to remove terrains. And if you're doing all that just to use your Sableye, you're better off just leaving that thing in the team preview and going with something else, I think. Psychic Terrain is so good right now. But Sableye brings a lot to the table. It also gets, like, Shadow Sneak to self Policy proc if you want it. And Sableye is definitely the type of Pokemon like a best on situation that can guarantee just, like, flip a game and just, like, win on the first turn. But after the first turn, you're going to have a hard time playing the long game in VGC with a Sableye. All right. Up next, a Pokemon that I think a lot of you guys have been waiting for me to talk about. Bisharp. I think Bisharp's really cool. I think Bisharp's very good. Similar to Obstagoon, it does get Defiant. So Defiant, super good ability, being able to raise those stats right up. Let's check this Bisharp out here. So Bisharp says, boost Pokemon's attack stats sharply when it's stats ordered. So yeah, with any of their stats, speed, attack, defense, special attack, anything. You switch in whatever. If they lower your stats, you're getting a boost. And Bisharp, similar to, like, let's say, what is that? Drapion and whatever the other poison thing was, Skuntank. It's a dark type that's good against fairies because it's a steel type. It's a dark steel. It has 4 times weakness to fighting. Its weakness is to ground, fire. Tons of weakness on these guys. These guys really like to carry that sash set. But you do see Life Orb sets because it also gets Sucker Punch. It's one of the few darks that does get that big Sucker Punch. And because you're getting so much more attack, and it actually has a really high base attack, has a decent base speed as well. This thing's good with Sash, good with Life Orb. I've seen Vested sets perform very well. Bisharp, if you're going to be playing the Vested sets, they usually like to carry Brick Break as well. Being able to fit a Brick Break onto your team is always really nice. Being able to max Nux as well to make it even stronger. Like, Bisharp's just a great Pokemon, and there's definitely been a bunch of times in the meta where, like, Bisharp is a meta pick, where, like, anytime, like, even, like, the only thing that really gives Bisharp a lot of problems is, I would say, Incineroar, because you don't really still want to, like, Incineroar doesn't care that it gives you the boost, because, like, Incineroar can still check the Bisharp, but, like, if you have other ways to check the Incineroar, like, if you go, like, Bisharp Politoed, first of all, you're taking away your weakness to fire by making it rain, and then Politoed checks the Incineroar, you're in just a great spot. So, things like that, like, Bisharp requires just a little bit of babysitting, but it's definitely good enough to be in the top 10, and just a great overall Pokemon that just brings a ton to the table. Great at checking, ghost types, great at checking fairy types, and definitely a Pokemon that needs to be respected all the times. Like Bisharp, a well-played late-game Bisharp, I think, it can just come out when they aren't really ready for its exact speed tier plus damage threshold and the ability to go for priority moves. Bisharp can definitely clean up games that were, you were barely losing. It's one of the few Pokemon that has a lot of, like, comeback potential if played right, I think. And so the next Pokemon on the list is actually one that I think used to be a lot better, but it's not very popular right now. I don't even think that I've seen one in, like, a few months on ladder, but it's still really good, depending on how you want to play it. And that's going to be Hydrogon. Hydrogon obviously much better in singles. It's a dark dragon type similar to Guzzlord, but this guy gets Levitate, and I think that's actually really the best thing it has going for it is the fact that it has Levitate. Levitate, for those who don't know, makes it so it's immune to ground attacks. So it really plays like a lot of the other dragons, like Dragonite and Salamence, for example, and Flygon. Well, not Flygon. But, it avoids those ground attacks, but this guy doesn't have a 4 times weakness to Ice, which means he kind of can just, like, if they want to, like, max Hailstorm you or Ice Punch or Ice Beam, you can kind of just eat it. It's thick enough to just eat it. And then from there, you can fire back with Fire Blast, Dark Pulse, Draco Meteors. I think it gets access to flying attacks. I would say this Pokemon is a little bit outclassed right now by a bunch of the other dragons. Like Dragapult, very similar. People like to use Dragapult a lot. People use Naganadel a lot right now as well. But what Hydrogon has going for it, unlike all the other dragons, is, like, Hydrogon's the guy that you call when you want to dumpster those Psychic and those Ghost types. Like, you can call Dragapult to dumpster those things, but you know, Dragapult is so common right now that you see so many people just like packing those Sucker Punches. You see people packing exclusive things to deal with Dragapult. And Hydrogon don't care. Put that Life Orb on this guy, he's a lot thicker than you might think. You can put a vest on this guy. You can put like some sort of berry on him. People still like to run specs and scarf sets. Hydrogon brings a lot to the table, still gets that U-turn. I would say, again, it's very similar to a Dragapult. And Dragapult's a good Pokemon, so Hydrogon's still a good Pokemon, even though you don't see it as much. Also gets access like Belch, which you don't see very frequently, but it makes for a lot of damage on the Dynamax Hydrogon sets. Alright, and then there were 6. Let's make them closer. What do you guys think is the sixth best Dark type? What do you think the 6th best Dark type is? I think it's Zorok. I wish I could put Zorok higher. I probably put Zorok way higher than everyone else, but I use more Zorok than literally everybody else. I'm the guy that uses the Zorok. I have more Zorok videos, I think, than any other Pokemon YouTube creator. And I think the amount of meme energy this guy brings to a team is just, it can't even be stated. This Pokemon's illusion ability makes it so he disguises himself as the last Pokemon in your party, right? And so you can disguise him as like a Gengar, right? You can disguise him as like a Mimikyu. Pokemon who have like perfect types to cover up for Zorok's weaknesses, or you can make them think that you're doing that and just have Mimikyu or Gengar and just hit whatever you want and just be in an absolutely amazing spot. This thing has above 100 base speed. It gets really, really cool moves. It has access to fire moves, fighting moves, bug moves, dark moves, access to taunt, access to so many different things. You can see this one was the Copycat set that we used very recently. Like, I love pairing it with Copycat. Like, when I pair it with like Copycat and I go with like an Alolan Raichu or something, or maybe a Pokemon that has like Expanding Force, and I Copycat that Rising Voltage or Expanding Force in terrain, Zorok uses those moves and gets the terrain boost as well. And I think like Zorok just provides so much fun gameplay while also being a Pokemon you have to respect, because if you think that you're fighting against X Pokemon and it's really a Zorok, or you expect it to be a Zorok and it's really X Pokemon, that's an immediate free win in a best of one, and it really makes your opponent think on their feet. And the fact that Zorok could be anything means it's at least in the top 6, in my opinion. And then we're 5. Now you may be thinking that I'm probably incorrect here with this 5th pick, because this 5th pick is definitely... The rest of these ones could all actually be number 1, I think. I think the rest of these could actually all be number 1. But I'm going to put Grimstron here. And I actually just got done streaming with a really aggressive like Life Orb Frisk Grimstron. It gets access to Frisk, it gets access to Prankster, and I think it has like one other actual like decent ability as well. Pokemon's just actually really, really good. The standard set you like to see on this guy is a dual screen set with Light Screen Reflect and a Light Clay. But sometimes they see Spirit Break, sometimes they see Foul Play, usually see the Thunder Wave on these sets as well. And it also has the ability to G-Max and go into the G-Max Grimstron to set up the G-Max Snooze to have a 50% chance to put things to sleep if you have like Foul Play or a Dark Attack to boost that off of. I think Grimstron is a Pokemon that should be in every single team. Every single team should have one of these Pokemon, because it forces them to respect potential screens. It forces them to respect Sucker Punches, Fake Outs, all the other things Grimstron has, Prankster, Thunder Waves. And a lot of teams, if you're just looking for a Pokemon to splash in your team to improve your results, Grimstron is the one. You'll be surprised how well you can use it and how well it baits opponents into playing a specific way. Every single team should have one of these guys in it, I think. And so it's very criminal that like it's not numero uno, I think. But again, it is weak against a lot of things. It is susceptible to those things that it does bait. It baits in those Brick Breakers, and they can really make it so they hard counter you. If you go for a play with like Thunder Wave or something, and they switch in a Lightning Rod user, or they switch in a Ground type, and you've wasted your turn doing that, and they check out your Grim, very similar to a couple of the other Pokemon like Sharpedo on the list. If you go all in playing this Pokemon a one-way, you maybe go for a trick play, it doesn't work, you will lose. The game will be over. Grim can be a double-edged sword if you want to be a little bit too aggressive with it. Really reserved Grim sets with the light screens can be taken advantage of by more proactive players. So there are situations in which like really good players can outplay you, but Grimstone's a Pokemon that kind of says, you got to be this tall to ride. And I definitely think that it's probably my favorite Pokemon that came out of the Sword and Shield expansion. It's just really, really good. And then there were 4. All these Pokemon are pretty good. But I think the Pokemon that's going to be 4th, to some people's surprise, is actually going to be Ttar. Yeah, it's going to be Ttar. I think Ttar brings a lot to the table. It's the only Pokemon on this list that has a weather activating ability in Sandstorm. Whenever Ttar hits the board, it activates Sandstorm for 5 turns, which in turn boosts the special defense of all rock Pokemon. So like it's going to be giving itself a Spadef boost, which makes it so it's a great weakness policy user. The biggest problem Ttar has holding it away from the top 3 spots is that it's 4 times weak to fighting, right? It has weaknesses to steel, weakness to ground, weakness to water. All those things are just regular super effective. You Dynamax yourself, you're going to be fine. Ttar gets one-shotted, and people know that like fighting attacks one-shot the Ttar. They can play around that. Ttar a little bit susceptible to Intimidate, and it's one of those Pokemon that if they have the correct like, also things that have fighting attacks, Ttar doesn't have like ways to like deal with them. It's a rock dark. It doesn't have access to like airstreams or big psychic attacks to be able to, even if you get boosts, like take those Pokemon out. So like when they have a fighting type on the board, if your teammate for the Ttar doesn't 100% check that fighting type, you can't really do anything. So Ttar can be caught with its pants down a little bit more than a couple of these other Pokemon. But I think in VGC, being able to have a like global weather effect, being able to command dominance and force your opponent to play a certain way. This Pokemon can be used in Tailwind teams, it can be used in Trick Room teams, and it brings a ton of the table. But I do think it falls short in that Ttar is kind of just okay, and there's certain metas where it's just unusable. First, the last 3 can be used in almost anything. And the Pokemon that's the third best Dark type in all of the Sword and Shield games, my light just went out, is going to be Moltres. I think Moltres is really good. I think Wolf Glick won the last Players Cup with Moltres. Moltres is the most popular Galarian legendary bird that came out. Gets access to Berserk. It's a great weakness policy mon. Weakness policy Moltres paired with like Comfey is another one of those teams similar to Grimstron. You gotta be this tall to ride. You gotta be ready to outplay it. It gets access to Airstream, and it has it's the only Pokemon in the game that has this attack called Fiery Wrath. It's an AO. It's pretty much a rock slide. They can't miss. 30% chance to flinch. It's so good. It gets nasty plot. Moltres has so much going for it. I've talked a little about it before. I don't think it's one of those Pokemon that like breaks or defines the meta, but I feel like most teams would like kill for one of these Pokemon on their team. And I just think Moltres brings a lot to the table. It's a flying dark, but because it's a dark, it's also immune to those prankster things. So you can't go for those turn 1 trick eject button plays. You can't go for those thunder waves, and Moltres is really, really good. It's one of those Pokemon that their game just kind of runs away. You get a Berserk proc, you get a Nasty Bot proc, you get an Airstream proc, and you kind of just run away with the game with Moltres. And so I wish I had more things to say about it, but it's just really good. It has really, really good overall stats, really good defensive typing, and it definitely is deserving of the number 3 slot. And the last 2, I have a confession to make. I don't have the Pokemon that's number 2. I have Urshifu Water. But I'm going to say Urshifu Dark is number 2. And they have the same base sprite. So Urshifu, for those of you guys that don't know, I was supposed to actually borrow Urshifu Dark for this video, but I didn't. Maybe you guys can like the video to help me get an Urshifu Dark. Anyways, yeah, Urshifu Dark, for those of you guys that don't know, it gets the Unseen Fist ability. We can at least still talk about that from Urshifu Water. So Unseen Fist says, if the Pokemon uses a move that makes direct contact, it can attack the target even if the target protects itself. So it goes through Protect, which is the number 1 like attack in doubles that most Pokemon have. So they can't block it. It's coming. They can't stop it. And then on top of that, if we were looking at Urshifu Dark, we'd see a move called Wicked Blow instead of Surging Strikes. Wicked Blow is an 80 base power move that automatically crits. I don't care how many Steel Spikes you got, how many defense boosts you got, Iron Defense, anything like that. I'm a one-shot you. It doesn't matter how much intimidates or screens happen. There is no stopping the Urshifu Dark when it decides to one-shot something, right? Wicked Blow is just going to one-shot everything. Choice Scarf sets are popular. Choice Band sets are popular. I would say Focus Sash sets are the most popular on Urshifu Dark. It does have that 4 times weakness to Fairy because it's a dark fighting, but because you have a Focus Sash, you're fine. It also gets access to Sucker Punch as well. Sucker Punch is pretty busted, and being able to have an above average base speed, I think it's base 95 or 96 or something like that, it might even be like 98. It's really fast. It's fast enough, right? And being able to not care about Intimidate, not care about screens, it has a very one-dimensional play style. It's definitely a one-punch mon, and it's so popular right now. You see it in almost every single team, and it's just a really, really good. Both Urshifus are good, but Urshifu Dark is just above me on a Pokemon that I feel breaks the way the game's supposed to be played. You can't protect against it. It automatically crits and has really, really good offensive typing, and so it definitely deserves number 2. But not as much as number 1 because it has to be Incineroar. As much as like you don't really see me use Incineroar, like this Pokemon's nuts. Similar to Scrappy, it gets Fake Out Intimidate. It has a decent speed tiering, can be used inside Tailwind, outside Tailwind, inside Trick Rooms. But Incineroar, just, it has the sauce. It has exactly what it needs. It uses Vested Set, Pinchberry sets, Citrus Berry sets, gets access to like Parting Shot. Incineroar is the glue that holds a lot of formats and a lot of teams together. It's kind of like an unKOable Intimidate Mon that can re-intimidate thanks to use of reliance on like U-Turn and Parting Shot. Gets access to Flare Blitz, which kind of sets it apart from all these other Mons. Like if you look at like Vipert, Persian, Scrappy, Weville, all those Mons, they can't fight like Ferrothorns or Steelas or Walls. Like Incineroar does not care because I'm gonna come in with this Incineroar and your Steel types are gonna do nothing. Like it switches in on your Steel attacks and then destroys your Steel type. Like these other things can't really do that. Incineroar is able to be a lot, you're able to get away with a lot more playing with Incineroar than you might actually believe if you're someone that hasn't used a lot of Incineroar. It can do so much. It gets the Snarls, it gets the Parting Shots, it gets a lot of really, really like cool moves. And you know, ever since it got Intimidate back in Ultra Sun and Moon, sorry, not Intimidate. I guess it did get the Intimidate, but yeah, gaining the Intimidate as its hidden ability, this Pokemon is kind of just like goes into every single team. Like it has above average speed tiering, and I know it's really, really popular, and I know people like definitely like to check it, but it's one of those things that it's even better than Grimstron. Like you need to be this tall to ride. Like you're not gonna one-shot this thing. It's gonna be able to do exactly what it wants to do every single game. And if you compare that to like, you know, card games or other games where consistency is king, like that's the reason why Incineroar is the best. It does exactly what it's supposed to do every single game. And what that is slow down the opponent by like making so that it stops their sweeps, makes so you don't die, and make it so it probably still ends up usually trading 1-for-1. And you can't ask for that much more out of a Pokemon. It's also really, really good against like Sunroom teams. Like there's a lot of teams that just like auto lose because you're using an Incineroar. I feel personally also as well, Incineroar makes a great Dynamax option. But that's my list. That's my list. Every single fully evolved Dark type in Sword and Shield. Guys, please let me know if you guys like this video. This was a lot harder to make than I thought it was going to be. And I thought about splitting them all up into like other videos. I thought about making 3 videos. I actually planned this week is going to be Dark Week. So I'm going to use a bunch of Dark type Pokemon in the videos. We might even bust out a Dark Mono team later in the week. So let me know if you guys want to see that. Hopefully you guys like this. We're going to try to make at least one of these a week if we can. And if you guys want to let me know in the comments what type you want to see next, I'll be asking in future videos. So hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.